Technology, the most prominent aspect of the 21st century. In the modern world, people have become accustomed to using computers, phones, consoles, and more on a day-to-day basis. Our work, sociality, and lives are dependent on the reliability of such tools. In a network, electronic devices are connected to one another for easier communication and collaboration. All this valuable information, however, is confidential and can lead to compromised data if in the wrong hands.
A vulnerability is something that can be exploited.
There are system misconfigurations.
Like an unpatched firewall.
Default password or default usernames are used.
A new found virus that can penetrate existing controls.
Those are some kind of vulnerabilities that we see in our day-to-day life, but most of them can be patched through patches.
The main purpose of monitoring your network is to make sure your data is secure, right? To make sure that your data or your client's data, whatever you have, is in a secured fashion while enabling the business, because people need access to information. And then the threat is who can exploit that vulnerability? What are their means to do so? If the vulnerability requires a lot of folks, a lot of processing power to exploit, then is it likely the threat is a foreign nation that has larger means and more resources to basically go after that vulnerability and try to attack your system?
So we usually use network scanning tools. There is Nessus, there is Rapid Fire, which helps us understand what vulnerabilities are present in our environment. But we do have policies and procedures like incident response, configuration management, there's patch management and vulnerability management. We defend using endpoint security. So endpoint security tools would be your antivirus, which is on your host, usually your systems, laptops.
But in the earlier days, this was difficult, but today there are a lot of tools, a lot of platforms that already have these trending analysis algorithms and functions built into them. After monitoring your network for a month or so, they can detect anomalies.
You use different layers to protect your network. So the first would be your firewall. You have two firewalls. It's one as an external, there's an internal firewall. You use VPN. Then you have antivirus, anti-software, anti-malware. You have different IDS, IPS, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems. The user itself, they need to be trained because they are the most vulnerable to all of these vulnerabilities.
There was an old vulnerability within Oracle. Oracle, whenever you would install a patch or you would install Oracle, the default password was Tiger. And a lot of people would forget when they patched the Oracle databases that for some reason Oracle defaulted admin password back to Tiger, and they would forget to change it. And so hackers, actually they knew that it defaulted back to user called Scott, and a password called Tiger. So they would exploit that. So a lot of what I've experienced is, basically misconfigurations or unpatched devices. The recent one, though, that I can speak to, and it's really still going on, is when software has bugs that are prone to new vulnerabilities. And in recent cases, including at our current organization, SolarWinds is what we discussed about a network monitoring tool. There were some secrets that got hacked around some of the existing vulnerabilities within that network monitoring tool that the company is working on. And so anyone running SolarWinds to monitor their network now are exposed to these vulnerabilities that were hacked from the company, proprietary information from the company, and they being used to penetrate people's networks running SolarWinds.
I do incident response. Vulnerability management is one of the things that I do. We developed the vulnerability management procedure for the organization. How do we want to resolve the vulnerabilities? There were some instances where we had to do some changes. So it's a different experience. So not every vulnerability will have the same solution. There might be a patch available for the vulnerability, but at the same time, with that patch, you need some configuration changes done to the system.
My background is I've been about 20 plus years in IT, around 15 years in the federal government alone. I'd say between contractor and supporting about 15 years, and then now private sector a little over 3. So 20 plus years. I started off managing a fairly large infrastructure within the federal government, a national infrastructure across all the states for quality monitoring. And at that time, cybersecurity really was not a focus of the government. This was back in like 2000. Within our area, I had to quickly realize that infrastructure, including your networks and devices, etc., were very vulnerable to what we now call cybersecurity. And so I had to learn quickly on security and bring myself up to the latest and greatest security issues, techniques, to support my federal government job and the infrastructure that was supporting millions of beneficiaries across the nation. And I just grew from there and grew my own IT teams, established my own cybersecurity programs within the government. Like I said, at the time, they didn't really exist, and really started from the ground up.
To get into this field, you need certifications. Certification is one of the important things, I feel, for the security people to get, because you get updated with all the stuff that's going on. Because security is one thing that gets updated daily, I feel. You will find new vulnerabilities, new procedures coming into place, new tools coming into place. So you need to keep yourself updated with all of those stuff. You can have a degree, but after a degree, you still need to keep learning to grow into this field.
From a cybersecurity perspective, it's a pretty demanding job. You have to do a lot of research. You know your blogs, you know your certain websites. You have to keep up with the vendors, and also chat. You spend a lot of time in chat groups, or you meet up with folks in the business at lunch or over the weekend, and you discuss things. So you have to keep your education forthgoing. There's always new attack vectors. There's always new vulnerabilities. It changes day to day. Cybersecurity is layers of defense. There's no one single magic bullet to fix everything. To be in a position like I am and to be able to understand cybersecurity from a holistic point of view, you have to understand how stuff works. And so if you don't understand how infrastructure works, networking devices work, if you haven't learned how software works, if you haven't learned how coding works, if you haven't learned how every kind of sort of piece of your system's architecture works, it's hard to look at it from a holistic point of view, right? Even how web browsers may trip certain errors and what those errors mean, like a 404 error versus a 361 error. And so typically for someone in my position, like I said, I had the fortunate luck of about 15 to 16 years of learning infrastructure before I was totally cybersecurity, learning the business, learning software, learning coding, took classes even on ethical hacking. You really have to learn how things work. And then you've got to take cybersecurity training on how you can exploit or how you can break how things work, what ports are used, your layers of your network, cryptography, encryption, which is sort of really hard to understand. It's many years of experience of different pieces of a general system network, tied in then with knowledgeable security classes and security information, etc., like starting to take your CISSP, starting to take your ethical hacking classes, starting to take your any cybersecurity class. If you don't know how things work, then if you go take an ethical hacking class, you're not really going to understand it. You're not going to understand the cybersecurity around it or the hacking techniques. You're just not going to follow it.
As people continue to rely on technological advancements, it's always important to maintain safety and security with such tools. Although they may benefit us in many different ways, such devices can hold numerous threats and dangers if not utilized properly. After this video, I hope you can integrate some of these techniques into your everyday life and prevent network vulnerabilities from becoming a menace in today's society. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos like these. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you later.